Well, it's home for the next week for hundreds of climate change activists who are being watched by hundreds of police. Heathrow's climate camp is designed to raise awareness of the environmental impact of aviation and the airport's expansion plans. Yet there are fears it could become the base for illegal protest. Downing Street has warned that any disruption would be unacceptable, while campaigners have condemned police who say they will use anti-terror powers to question those attending. Protesters began setting up the camp yesterday on a large rectangular piece of land. It's just a few hundred yards north of Heathrow's perimeter fence. From there, Nick Martin reports.
In the shadow of the world's busiest airport is the commune they tried to ban. The owner of Heathrow, BAA, tried its best to prevent the Camp for Climate Change action, but failed in the High Court. Today it arrived, and over the next week 1,500 environmental campaigners plan to come here and take direct action against the airport, although no one has quite decided what type of action yet.
The main objective isn't going to be to disrupt passengers, but to try and disrupt the companies that are the root causes of climate change.
It's eco-friendly here: compost toilets, wind turbines, solar panels and homegrown produce.
Bye.
Then there's the press office, manned 24 hours a day. The photocopier wheeled in earlier, the essential toilet roll brought in by hand, and the diesel generator to power the machine and sustain the campaign. It's eco-friendly with a corporate edge. There'll be 1.5 million passengers passing through Heathrow this week. The airport, like others across Britain, is on a heightened state of alert.
The airport's fully operational as we speak, and quite clearly the camp has now been established, and we're looking at ways to protect our operation to ensure the smooth flow of passengers in and out of the airport throughout the whole period of the camp.
Access is through a police roadblock only. The protesters move under the glare of a police photographer, and residents are having problems too.
They don't allow my vehicle to go there and drop my tent. I think this is unlawful and unjust.
The police are using anti-terror laws to stop and search protesters and residents. They've been accused of abusing the law to police the event.
Our village is now being disruptive, not by the campers, but by BAA and police bully tactics. And we're being interviewed like we were, or speak to like we were terrorists.
20-year-old student Christina Fraser was arrested here last week. She was riding her bike along a cycle path when police stopped her. She spent 30 hours in a police cell without access to a lawyer before she was released.
It's unbelievable. I can't really believe how they are manipulating the law to protect the corporations like BAA. The fact that I was arrested under terrorism charges and no one knew I was there, that's quite a scary thought.
It's all very peaceful at the moment, but then the camp hasn't actually opened yet. It's not due to start until tomorrow. But there are due to be more police officers here than actual protesters. About 2,000 are being drafted in from 4 different police forces. And the problem for the police is when the direct action starts later in the week, how they deal with it and if and when they intervene.
Well, earlier I spoke to Commander Joe Kay, the police officer overseeing security around the climate camp, and I asked him if he was expecting any terror suspects to be among the crowd.
The climate camp is about a demonstration about climate. Quite obviously, we will use public order policing tactics to police public order, but Heathrow Airport is a security backcloth, and we have to police that. It's been a security operation all my life, and I'm sure all of yours. People who visit Heathrow know that. We police it 365 days a year, and where we are working in a counter-terrorist and security environment, we will use counter-terrorist policing.
That suggests that you could use anti-terror laws to deal with anybody anywhere near Heathrow Airport. Is that your attitude?
My attitude, and the attitude that has been briefed to our officers, is that they should use the full range of their powers. But they must do so lawfully and they must do so proportionately. When they are dealing with a public order event, then they will use their public order legislation.
And anti-terror
they're working
powers.
in a counter-terrorist... Just wait one moment, please. When they're dealing with a counter-terrorist environment, then they'll use their counter-terrorism powers. Now, people who live in the capital are very used to big events in the centre, There is a security element to that, not just a demonstration, and where it is appropriate, lawful and proportionate, officers will use their counter-terrorism powers.
Even though they're not dealing with terrorists or even suspected terrorists?
The whole point of counter-terrorist legislation, in particular to, I'm sure you're referring to Section 44, does not require reasonable grounds, but is designated, and so this is the case with Heathrow Airport. However, I must reiterate that where we're dealing with public order events, we will use public order legislation, and when we're working in the counter-terrorism environment, that is counter-terrorism legislation. And the very whole point of that is to make sure that it's prevention, because it is a signal to the potential terrorist, but also it's about making people safe. People want to know that they can safely use the airport, and that is part of using that tactic.
But is it the case that when you stop somebody using anti-terror laws, you are regarding them and treating them as a terror suspect?
We are treating them and dealing with them in a counter-terrorist legislation and appropriate environment.
Well, that's not an answer to the question.
Heathrow Airport is. It is an answer to the question. We will use it proportionately and lawfully.
But aren't those laws designed to be used against terror suspects?
They are to be used to keep the capital safe. We must use them proportionately and lawfully. And if people feel that we are not so doing, then we can be held account according to law.
Commander Joe Kaye speaking to me earlier, and later in the programme we'll be bringing a protester face-to-face with a representative of the airlines and the aviation industry.